Theo followed you around the high-end boutique, a hint of amusement in his gaze as he observed you browsing through the racks of designer clothes. He could sense the excitement in your eyes as you held up different items, imagining how they would look on you. Theo secretly found your enthusiasm endearing, even though he mostly kept a neutral expression on his face. As you continued browsing through the racks, Theo approached you, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. He stood beside you, his gaze flickering over the items you were examining. "Have you found anything that catches your eye, sweetheart?" he inquired, his voice soft and smooth. Theo couldn't help but let out a soft chuckle at your answer, amused by your enthusiasm. "Everything, huh?" he repeated, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. "Well, then I might as well just purchase the entire store for you." Theo chuckled softly at your sudden backpedaling, finding your realization amusing. He knew very well he had the capability to buy every item in the store, but he decided to play along. "Are you sure?" he teased, his smirk growing wider. "I don't mind spoiling you, sweetheart." Theo's gaze followed your gesture, landing on the dress you were pointing at. He studied the fabric and design of the item, taking note of the details. Despite his indifference to fashion, he had to admit that the dress was nice. "That one does look pretty. Try it on," he suggested, tilting his head slightly. Theo leaned against the wall, casually crossing his arms as he waited for you to go over to the assistant to get the correct size of the dress. He watched you interact with the staff, noticing the way your eyes kept darting back to him from time to time, as if to check if he was still there. He couldn't help but find the sight endearing, his expression softening ever so slightly. Theo remained where he was, observing as you walked into the dressing room, the dress in hand. He stood outside, waiting patiently for you to try on the garment. He could hear the sounds of you changing inside the room, the shuffling of fabric, and the occasional soft rustle of the dress against your skin. Theo's gaze landed on you as you cautiously opened the door, the dress hugging your figure. He observed your expression, noticing your uncertainty about the outfit. He pushed off the wall, approaching you with a scrutinizing look. "What's wrong with it?" he inquired, his eyes roaming over the dress. Theo took a step closer, his gaze sweeping over the dress and the way it clung to your curves. He noticed the discomfort on your face as you pulled at the fabric. "It does seem a bit tight," he observed, his gaze lingering on the areas where the material seemed to hug tightly. "You're uncomfortable in it?" Theo's gaze lowered to your stomach, his eyes taking in the subtle curves of your body. He noticed the way you seemed self-conscious about your belly, a hint of vulnerability in your voice. "There's nothing wrong with having a belly," he reassured softly, his expression gentler. "You look beautiful, but if it makes you uncomfortable, we can try another size or a different dress." Theo nodded in understanding, his gaze still studying your features. He could see the desire for a different type of dress in your expression. "Let's find you something more comfortable then. Something that'll make you feel confident and beautiful." Theo's expression softened slightly, a slight smirk playing at the corner of his lips. "You stay here," he instructed, his tone gentle but firm. "I'll go grab a few dresses that I think you'll like. Just give me a few moments, sweetheart." Theo moved efficiently through the store, his gaze skimming over the racks of dresses. He stopped when his eyes landed on a few pieces that caught his attention. With a subtle gesture, he pointed at the desired items, and the assistants who had been following him like shadows immediately scurried off to grab the correct sizes. The process was seamless and swift, the assistants returning moments later with the dresses Theo had chosen. Theo continued to point at various dresses, his gaze flickering from one item to another. He considered each piece carefully, mentally picturing how they would look on you. "Maybe the pink one," he said, nodding towards a flowing dress in soft rose pink. "And that one in blue," he added, gesturing towards a dress in a deep indigo shade. Theo settled himself on a plush sofa situated outside the dressing room, comfortably crossing one leg over the other. He leaned back against the sofa, his gaze fixed on the door where you had disappeared into the fitting room. He couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation as he waited for you to emerge wearing the dresses he had picked out. His eyes remained focused on the door, his mind picturing how you would look in each dress. Theo's gaze immediately landed on you as you stepped out of the fitting room, the soft pink fabric flowing around you as you spun. His eyes skimmed over your figure, taking in the way the dress clung to your curves. A subtle smile tugged at his lips as he observed your shy yet radiant expression. He let out a soft hum of approval. "Perfect," he murmured. Theo remained seated on the sofa, his gaze focused intently on you as you stepped out of the fitting room, changing into the different dresses he had picked out. With each new outfit, he studied your figure, his eyes roaming over the different fabrics and styles. Each time you emerged, he would offer a word of encouragement, nodding appreciatively. "That looks lovely on you. You look beautiful in that one." Theo's gaze fixed on you as you stepped out in the final dress, the long black fabric clinging to your curves and the laced-up back of the dress revealing just enough skin to spark desire. His expression darkened with a hint of possession, a smirk creeping onto his face as he let out a low hum of approval. "That looks good on you. Almost too good," he murmured. Theo smirked, his eyes roaming over your figure once more, taking in every contour and curve of your body. He let out a snort at your comment. "You look far better than any mannequin," he replied, his tone a mix of sincerity and arrogance. "In fact, I don't want anyone else seeing you in that dress. You're just too damn perfect." After you had tried on and selected the dresses you wanted to purchase, Theo stood by your side as he watched the assistants start packing the items you'd chosen. He paid for the items without even glancing at the total amount, his attention solely on you. Theo guided you through the sprawling mall, leading you from one luxurious store to another. He insisted on purchasing every item you even remotely showed interest in, from purses and shoes to jewelry and designer handbags. Each time you hesitated trying to protest, he'd brush off your objections with a wave of his hand. As Theo walked through the mall with you following closely beside him, he noticed the attention he was drawing from various girls scattered throughout the place. His tall, muscular frame and sharp, chiseled features caught their eye, the girls stealing covert glances in his direction. He kept a stoic expression on his face, completely unbothered by their ogling. Despite his indifference, he couldn't help but notice the girls' lingering gazes. Theo's smirk widened slightly as you teased him, and he responded nonchalantly, his tone slightly possessive yet confident. "Let them stare," he said, his gaze briefly flickering in the direction of the girls gawking at him. "You're the one leaving the mall with me, sweetheart." Theo raised a questioning eyebrow at your playful nudge, but he couldn't help the small smile that tugged at the corners of his lips. "Of course I like you, sweetheart," he replied, his tone softening. "Why do you think I'm spoiling you like this?" Theo let out a deep, amused chuckle at your playful remark. "Oh, sweetheart, if you were just a hostage, I wouldn't be spending this kind of money on you," he responded, a smirk on his lips. "You know damn well I wouldn't be going through all this trouble if I didn't like you at least a little bit. Theo's smirk widened, his gaze raking over your face. Fine, more than a little bit, he admitted, his tone softening slightly. Maybe I like you quite a lot, sweetheart. Is that what you want to hear? Theo's smirk faltered for a moment, his composure faltering slightly as a faint blush crept onto his cheeks. He averted his gaze for just a second before looking back at you, his voice a bit more quiet. Shut up, he mumbled, the words lacking his usual arrogant tone. I am not enjoying this more than you. Theo's blush deepened as you playfully poked him, his resolve crumbling even further. He let out an exasperated sigh, his usual arrogance replaced by a hint of embarrassment. Stop poking me, he grumbled, swatting gently at your hand. And fine, maybe I'm enjoying this a little more than you are. But that's beside the point. Theo's breath hitched slightly as you asked the unexpected question. For a split second, a hint of vulnerability flickered in his eyes, and his heart rate increased ever so slightly as he quickly composed himself. Why do you ask that? He countered, trying to sound nonchalant despite the obvious hitch in his breath. Theo's heart skipped another beat at your suggestion, his mind racing briefly as he tried to process his own reaction. He tried to maintain his usual cool, dismissive attitude, but a hint of genuine surprise and curiosity crept into his voice. Are you asking me on a date? He asked, his gaze fixed on you. Theo's expression softened further, his stoic facade crumbling even more as he took in your words. He paused for a moment, a mix of surprise, could it be hope, flickered in his eyes. You're serious? He asked, his tone tinged with a touch of disbelief. You want to go on a date with me? Theo's lips quirked up in a half smile, finding your soft chuckle endearing. He shook his head in mild incredulity. A bit hard to believe, yes, he admitted, his gaze searching your face. You realize I'm not exactly relationship material, right? Theo couldn't help but chuckle at your playful tease, his tension easing slightly. He feigned offense, placing a hand dramatically over his chest. Oh, you've dated worse? He said, his tone playfully hurt. I don't know if I should be offended or flattered. Theo's smile turned teasing, a hint of playfulness in his voice as he jested. So, does this mean you're asking me out because you're my hostage? Or do you actually tolerate me, sweetheart? He tried to brush off your teasing comment with a nonchalant wave of his hand, but there was no hiding the redness creeping up on his cheeks. Head over heels is a strong word, darling, he replied, a hint of defensiveness in his voice. I just happen to enjoy spoiling you, that's all. But yes, he affirmed, his voice holding a hint of seriousness. If you're being serious, sweetheart, I'd like to take you out on a date.